Okay, everyone. Made my way up to the Colfax Railroad Museum.
Well, we have about 3,000 pieces in the collection.
All right.
There's about 1,800 on display right now. The next largest collection we've heard about is the National Collection in York, England. They have about 650 pieces. It kind of gives you an idea of the magnitude of what you're looking at here.
Wow.
We just went through a total reset for the museum here, just finished up last week.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get more displays out of the actual settings of China.
Yeah, let me take a quick walk through recording.
What we have here, we have China from the US, we have China from Canada, and we have China from all over the world. We have China from England, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Turkey, the Congo, South Africa, Rhodesia, India, Pakistan, Thailand, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, Korea, China, Japan, USSR, Colombia, and Mexico, and even from the colony of Newfoundland before it became part of
So now,
Canada.
how do you, do you go out and source that, or they don't just all donate it?
It's the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we get it from yard sales, from thrift shops,
Oh, all right.
from antique shops, from auctions, from donations.
Yeah.
I had one acquisition one time that I stopped at an antique shop while I was on travel.
Mm-hmm.
And a little gray-haired old lady was sitting there at her desk, and I got through the shop and hadn't seen anything. She said, "Are you looking for anything special?" I said, "Well, I was looking for railroad items." She said, "I think I've got some downstairs in the basement." And all I could picture was the black hole of Calcutta.
Yeah.
One of these old shops that had two shops together with a door between for a basement. I get down there, beautifully well lit. Right in front of me is a total setting of China. I'll show it to you here.
Wow, her husband must have worked on the railroad.
No, it was a consignor. They had this China sitting there.
Wow.
And they had about 17 pieces of it.
That's beautiful.
I had the chutzpah to ask her, "Do you do dealer discount?" And she said, "Oh, let me call it a consignor." And they did. We ended up selling one place setting, cup and saucer, and it paid for everything. And that's kind of how we've acquired a lot of the stuff here.
All right.
We'll get collections, we'll take out the stuff that we don't have, and then sell the rest of it. We sell on eBay. We're a nonprofit, and they only charge us the 3% fee that they have for the charge cards. So it works out well for us. We work on a $20,000 a year budget here, and it's difficult.
So now I know, because the donations, it's $10 for adults. What are the other?
$5 for juveniles and $2 for kids.
Okay.
And we do, if you have a group, it's a discount for that. We encourage school groups and such.
Yeah.
Our chairman is a teacher, and we've kind of set up the tours so that we can target them to what classes that they want to have covered.
Sure, and the age range, right?
Yes.
It's a little different.
From first grade all the way up to college. We work with the local universities with their history departments doing intern training. We get in students that have they've gotten trained on history, but they don't know a blessed thing about trains, and have had no speaking experience per se. We try to teach them what you have to do if you're using a job with a history degree. Getting to be familiar with political side, writing grants, writing National Historic Register programs, doing tour guide updates for the tour itself, doing cataloging, doing signage.
Did you yourself work for the railroad? No.
I did not.
But always, like me, always interested in
my job pretty much all my life has been a financial manager.
Oh, okay.
I do the grant writing for the museum, do
nice.
treasury work, and I get to hunt for all the stuff.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, that's quite a collection. I mean, yeah, I just turn all around. Matchbooks.
And it's not all China. I mean, when you rode on the railroad, usually you're there for quite a while. So you'd have playing cards, you'd have the parlor car where you could go down and have a drink, or you could have a smoke, convivial conversation. If you've ever seen the movie The Sting, the card game they had there was not uncommon.
Yeah, this is quite a collection. All right, so, and you said this was a depot, but it wasn't the original.
No, the original one was in 1884, and it lasted until August of 1898. One afternoon, the passenger train left, and they left some hot coals underneath the platform.
Oh, okay.
Burned down the station and most of the neighborhood around here. Convinced the village they needed a water system for firefighting. The railroad rebuilt a little bit larger station because this was a major shipping point. That building is still in existence, but it's now across the tracks. In 1912, Teddy Roosevelt stopped here on his last whistle stop campaign. Was supposed to get out and give a speech, but he got interrupted by a passing freight train. So, got out, waved to the folks, got back on. They went down to Milwaukee. The next day was when he was shot by the assassin.
Oh, jeez.
And they found out the assassin had been on the train here with Teddy. And it may have only been by virtue of that passing freight train that history didn't change, because the medical facilities weren't anywhere near what Milwaukee had at that time.
Yeah.
And Teddy was lucky. He'd stuck his speech into his vest pocket, and it was a big speech for the convention. And he got shot through the speech.
Wow.
He looked at the wound and went out and had the driver take him to the convention. He gave an hour and 45-minute speech and then went to the hospital with a bullet in his chest.
Jeez. Yeah, the history. It's
about a year later, the railroad was convinced by the village that they were an important enough shipping point that they jacked the building up that was here, set it aside, built this building, and then moved it across the tracks and used it as a track crew and train crew rooming house. And that lasted for probably about 30 years until the jobs started going more towards New Richmond and Chippewa. And then they started renting it to a local family. Then they sold it.
And that's part of this.
It's part of the museum now.
Okay.
About 11 years ago now, about 11 years ago now, we had another small tornado come through town here.
Oh, jeez.
F0, I mean, I was coming up from my job in Madison at the time. I came into town about 15 minutes after it hit. It was bright blue sky. Radar with no one never even got a chance to get it on the radar, but it hit the depot, it hit the schools, and that was it.
Oh, it bounced, huh?
Yep. The 92-year-old gentleman that was living in the house at the time was standing in the doorway and watched his roof pull the Wizard of Oz act into the parking lot across the tracks. We bought the building for basically the land price.
Yeah.
And we have restored it. We now have our library, archives, event center, and a model railroad club getting started. And we also have our little miniature train ride housed in the garages.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even know that was over there.
Yep.
I saw this. I was in the area, and I saw you were open till 4, so I decided to run on up here.
Now, the room we're in right now was the women's waiting room. The other end would have been the men's waiting room. You couldn't have the women in with the actual chewing, smoking, drinking.
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. I
I
know that from the other depots. Yeah.
But this is actually a picture of the depot in operation back in the 1920s.
Yeah, it's a little dark. Looks like it's getting it though.
Right from the position you're standing in right now, looking into the room.
Oh.
This is the original station master's.
Oh man, there's a lot in here. Really nice. Nice display.
And we have some ties here with some historic figures. Back in the 1880s, a little mixed terrier adopted the Postal Service. Wandered into a mail car one day, rode with them to their destination. When they were done, he got up, went across the platform, went to another mail car, and started riding another mail car, and just started riding it around the country. The clerks eventually named him Oni, and the word got around that Oni was riding the rails, and the clerks would make little tags. So if he happened to show up for their run, they would put a tag on his collar. When he died, he had a metal flak jacket from all the tags. They actually harvested over 1,100 tags over his lifetime. The post office even sent him on a round the world tour to publicize the post office. And he's still around. He's in the Postal Museum in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay, wow.
And we have probably the only mail car he rode in that's still in existence.
Is that the one out there?
The yellow one out there is the oldest standard gauge mail car still in existence in the country.
There is one in National Railroad Museum. I saw when I toured that.
It's not as old as that. This is 1884.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
yeah.
There's a lot of them from the 1890s, but the 1880s, they were pretty much harvested out in the 1920s because of safety problems. They tried to extend them a little bit by putting rail on the ends of the cars so that they wouldn't telescope into the next car if there was an accident.
Oh, okay.
Because they had,
they were wooden back then,
yes,
right?
Yep.
Okay.
And no center frame either. You just had the truss rods underneath. So very, very fragile cars.
Yeah.
But this is, the stamps that they put out for him. But the post office even has a little stuffed figure for him now.
Is that him right
That's
there?
him. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. The headlights from the
Yep. This one's
locomotives?
this is from Milwaukee Road Northern. And it's kind of unusual. Let me find the... There we go. This is what they call Mars light.
Oh, okay.
And that was a safety feature that they came up with.
Yeah, I've seen some of them that do this as they're going.
Yeah, well,
they
that's the early version of it.
Okay.
This was so that as the train came up, the light would appear to flash, and if you came to a curve, it would come out of the inside of the curve. Otherwise, it was going off into.
Yeah.
But made by it's the Mars headlight, made by the Mars Candy Company.
Wow.
That's
interesting.
They had contracts in World War II to make light fixtures for the government, for the war effort. And this one proved so successful, it continues to this day.
Wow, that's really neat. I like that.
Now, if you want to turn around here,
Sure.
I've got some other interesting stuff here. These are the two oldest pieces in our collection, 1829 and 1831. The start of the B&O Railroad and start of their passenger service. When they had their 100th anniversary in 1927, they went back to that flow blue look. Now, these are not hand-painted, these are decaled. We actually have a couple of the decals that they use for these.
Oh. Okay.
Now, up above here, common practice in the Midwest was a lot of the railroads would have their own marching clubs or marching bands.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Northern Pacific's marching club uniform and the banner they carried with them in the parades over the Minnesota area. Primarily the the St. Paul Winter Carnival.
Okay.
And the smaller uniform was a Chicago Northwestern female band member. The lanterns down below here date back as far as the late 1850s. If you'll notice the ones that had the little tube sticking up, those were whale oil fired.
Oh, okay.
Whales were real glad when they found that black gunk in Pennsylvania could be turned into kerosene.
There's the mailbag right there that hangs on the side of the car.
Yep.
Or on the side of the railroad, and then the car grabs it.
Yep. Ours would have been a stanchion right out in front of the depot here.
Okay.
The tracks. Now this is the only original piece of furniture from the station, and it actually looked like this originally. It had doors with it.
Uh-huh.
When we got the building, it had been boarded up for many, many years. Kids had gotten in.
Yeah.
Some of the latter workers in the era with the railroads left about 40 whiskey bottles downstairs in the crawl space.
Full?
No, empty. But we've gone back through and redone the station.
Yeah.
Now, if you ever worked with a telegraph, you might have seen one of these.
I have seen them, but yeah, I'm not familiar
It's
with
kind
it.
of like a player piano. With a telegraph, you have the dots and the dashes.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
dot.
Morse code.
How do you get a dot and a dash out of a click?
Well, from the look of that tape, you got the long.
No, you listen for the dead space between them. It clicks with the paper,
Okay.
and then you have the dead space between it then. And it gives you your dot and your dash. We try to, when we get kids in here, this is really fun because you ask them, you show them the telegraph and what's that? And I just tell them, it's an early form of texting.
Yeah, I
And,
guess
and
it
the
is.
typewriter, that's the early form of keyboard. But we try to show the kids how technology has changed and how it's still
Yeah, it's
works the same
blazing
way.
fast.
Yep. We have here our lantern collection and more of the lanterns.
Wow, just a lot
You
of
can kind of
lanterns.
tell the status of the railroad worker by the type of lantern they had. Usually your brakeman would have the common tin lanterns. A head brakeman or a junior conductor would have a brass top lantern. And then your senior conductors would have the brass or nickel plated lanterns. And many times they have them engraved with their names on them.
Okay. Wow. That is quite a collection there, too.
And I always have fun with folks when they come here on a tour. I ask them, do you have any idea what this piece was used for originally? Or it's repurposed.
I really don't.
Well, originally...
Looks like an anchor.
Originally it was part of a spring. It would hold, two of these would hold a coil spring.
Oh,
When they
okay.
started scrapping those trucks, though, the railroads were a great reuser of everything. So what they did is they drilled a hole and put the hoop on there.
Okay.
And those, you're close, they're horse anchors. They would have these out in front of stations.
Oh, okay. Wow.
If you ever see any of the early Gunsmoke episodes, look at Doc's carriage because you'll see something like that there. They could throw it on a carriage or wagon if you went out for delivery. That way, if there wasn't a hitching post there, you had something.
Yeah. Huh. That is interesting. You got keys and locks.
Yep. We even have a key in there for a dining car wine cellar.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
I like that.
Stoves like this would have been in the early days before they had electric signals. They'd have had usually an elderly or disabled railroader that could still work but couldn't do heavy work, would be stationed at busy road crossings, and he would go out when the train was due and wave a lantern, sometimes even have a manual gate to pull down. But this is what kept him warm in winter in that little crossing shanty he had.
What is this?
That is there to tell you whether you're colorblind or not.
Used to test employees for color blindness.
Yep, this is the early kerosene version, and that's the modern electric version.
I've never seen anything like that.
Yep. Well, maybe you're colorblind then.
Well, no, I don't think so. I just never seen a machine like that.
This is a picture of Teddy when he was on the tour here, the next stop up the line. We've never been able to find a picture of him actually here in Colfax.
Uh-huh.
But we got close.
Wow. You might still.
Yeah. You see here the track parts, spikes.
yeah.
As the track got bigger, the spikes got bigger. This was some of the early rail after the strap iron on wood. They went to the shape here because with the straps, they had a tendency, the bolts that would hold them down would break, and that strap would curl back up into the cab and impale the engineer or the fireman.
Jeez. I've never seen a track like that.
And here's another one we just picked up recently. This is from the Panama Railroad before the canal went through. These were, hang on here. Life for each, it was basically, it said a life for each ties, lignum vitae. This was a souvenir from the Pan American Exposition in San Francisco in the early 1900s.
Wow.
And here's your early fire extinguishers.
That's,
You take them, throw them at the base of the flame, and you ran like the dickens because it would put the flame out, but it would put you out too.
Yeah.
Highly toxic.
Is that the same things that are in those globes?
Yep. And if you work for the railroad, You got badges and buttons and pins, oh my. If you went to the national conventions, you'd get a ribbon to show that you'd supported the union. Every 5 years, you'd get a pin from the Union for Longevity. The railroads, had to keep track and keep pace with them. They'd also want to get their 5 and 10-year pins. You'd have stuff for special events, special occasions. The police and the railroads had full, as a arrest authority, they called them the railroad dicks.
Oh, yeah.
So you had full arrest authority there. If you had a tour, you might have a button to show that you were the host or hostess for it. Milwaukee Road did it best, though. They would ask the ladies for a volunteer for one of them to host a tea in the parlor car on the long distance trains. And for her efforts, she would get she had a choice of a leather-bound recipe book or a Haviland cup and saucer. So if she traveled frequently, she could get herself a whole tea set.
She could get a set, yeah. Wow, and then that must be
These are
certificate of recognition, and they're stock, right?
No. These are longevity.
Yep.
The one above the door here is the 7th oldest union charter in the country. August of 1864, Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers.
Wow.
About a year before that, the railroads and the government had busted up the railroad labor organizations, and they reformed under the union basis. They'd have the local hall that they could go down to. They'd go down, shoot the bull, have a drink. Eventually, the wives got tired of it, and they started their own chapters too.
Oh, okay.
So that if there was a strike, they'd be prepared to get coffee and sandwiches to the guys on picket lines and such. And even a couple kids' chapters.
Wow. Interesting.
This is our gift shop and hobby shop here. A lot of these are items we've picked up with collections that were duplicates. The model railroad layout here was from a club over in the Twin Cities. They actually modeled Eau Claire to Richmond. The guys who were in the club went and took pictures and made drawings of all the buildings along that track, and they scratch built the structures. And we have those in storage. We're in the process of getting a club started over in the other building.
Yeah.
We hope to use a few sections of that. We also had a major layout donated to us from the estate of the retired CEO for We Energies. He'd had 4 houses around the country, and he'd had a company out in Massachusetts build him layouts at the cost of $250,000 a layout. What we have in the grounds here, on the outside here, the blue caboose is one of the last wooden cabooses built in the U.S. Minneapolis, Northfield, and Southern, built in the 1960s. Beyond that is a 1937 Milwaukee Road Hiawatha baggage car. We are in the process of doing the restoration work on that, getting the body work done, and we actually got the roof painted last fall before we got shut down by weather.
Are you taking volunteers too?
Oh yes, all the time.
Please, huh? Yeah.
We train people. We have our own woodworking capabilities.
Machinists? You could use machinists, huh?
If they have their own shop. We've got the steam engine here that...
Yeah, some people have like a milling machine or a lathe in their garage or something.
Yep. That it's not going to be restored for operation, but we're restoring it cosmetically.
Yeah.
Now the caboose here, with that robin perched in front of it here, this is a 1911 Soo Line wooden caboose. We got this from a house moving company over in the Twin Cities. Somebody lost an egg here, I see. Walk around this way. When we got this, careful. The walls were falling off on it. It had sat out in a house mover's yard for a number of years, but we've gone back and we've rebuilt it.
Yeah.
This was the first piece of equipment that we started on. And when this car was in service, it carried passengers. Soo Line had a lot of territory up in the Northern Plains where there just wasn't enough population to support regular passenger service. So you had the 2-bunk seats here, and that is an original seat cushion. It gave a whole new meaning to the term hard-assing it.
I think I have ridden in one of these cabooses back when I was young.
Well, in the 1970s, when Amtrak was formed, they gave the railroad an option. They could either turn over ownership of all their passenger cars to Amtrak and be shed of the service, or they could continue for about, I think it was 2 or 3 years, and then they kept the passenger cars. Well, Soo Line needed to replace their work train cars, so they kept on doing it for the period, but they designated their cabooses as the passenger cars.
Huh.
So if you knew when the freight train was leaving the yard, you could go down. Conductor would go in here. He'd have a ticket stored in here, and he'd sell you a ticket to ride to your destination. Now, when we started working on this thing, as you can see in the pictures here, there was a lot of graffiti, a lot of damage. We got to this little bin.
As there usually is, a lot of people.
And we thought it was full of garbage. Still had the original coal load in it.
Oh, wow.
And we let kids see it, feel it. Most of them have never seen coal in their lives.
Really? Yeah, I guess not.
Now,
Jeez.
the crew would sit up here watching the train for hot boxes,
Sure, up in the
or any other equipment damage.
cupola.
Yep. They had the bunks here. These were more if the train got stuck out in the plains in a snowstorm or something. They weren't the most comfortable. They normally would stop at a local
Hotel or something.
rooming house and whatever, and get a room for the night. But
So
if they had a short term.
What year was this?
This is 1911.
1911. Okay.
Now this is an original Pullman mattress. It would not have been unheard of for the crews to liberate one when they were being changed over from the cars and such. Then you had a closet here for clothes, food, and tools. This was your closet for lanterns and fuel and such, because it's metal lined. You had a potable water there. Just get the green stuff out occasionally.
Yep.
And then here you had your one-hole biffy right down onto the tracks.
Yeah, right onto the tracks.
I can remember Grandma telling me when I was younger, "Don't go down by the railroad tracks. It's dirty down there."
Oh, I guess that's why I wasn't supposed to go too.
Now I know why. This is your.
It's the old ice box.
I tell the kids, you know what this is? They go, no. This is your refrigerator. It's an ice box.
Is that the cranking phones?
Yep. Well, these were field phones. You could have one here and one in the engine, and we could talk back and forth.
Yeah. Very nice.
Now this next car was a grain car.
Yeah, this looks really old.
Again, this is about 1914, if I remember right. You could fill the car up inside, let's see, wheat, corn, barley, or oats, based on the weight per cubic foot. They could bulkhead the doors up, and when they got to their destination, they bust the door out, and they hired local kids to shovel the car out. We got this car after it had been taken out of regular revenue service. They were using it as a bridge and building car, tool car, for track work and such.
How bad was it? Oh, there's pictures. Oh, that's the other one. I saw pictures in the other one. How bad was it? You did a lot of restoration?
We had some, you can see some of the wood we had replaced here.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
But that's the thing with the wood cars,
Well,
if it gets damaged, get a new board and mill it down, and you got a replaced car. Now the signals here.
Yeah, this is impressive with all these signals I saw.
This would have been one of your original crossing lights.
Yeah.
Remember I mentioned that the guy would swing the light if the train was coming? Form, followed, function. The first early lights swung.
Yeah, I seen that in some movies or something somewhere.
You got your crossing lights. One of the stop sign was a safety innovation. The Griswold company came up with the idea. In the early days, you had problems with electricity always being on out in the rural areas. And they were having problems with people coming up to the sign, nothing flashing. They go through and get hit by a train because the power was out.
Yeah.
So the stop sign was held perpendicular to the highway with an electromagnet. If the power failed, that magnet released a weight.
Oh, wow.
sign spun around. Now they knew they had to stop for the
That is
crossing.
interesting, yeah.
The ones with the black shields here, those are basically your traffic signals for the railroad.
Right.
Green, yellow, red. The railroad would break the trackage up in what they call block sections. And what it was that if it was green, the next 2 blocks were clear. If it was yellow, the next block was clear, but there was something in that following block. It could be a train going with same direction as you were going, or it could be coming towards you. You had to be prepared to stop at the next block signal.
Yeah.
And it was red, you hit the brakes and stop there.
Yeah, you take the siding, huh?
Yep. Now the 6 light here.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about that.
That was more common out east, where you had centralized track control.
Mm-hmm.
You could be switched remotely from one track to another. So you'd have one set of lights telling you what your track was, and you'd have the other set telling you what the track that you might be put onto. What was that?
Okay. The old scales there.
Yep. One of those dates back in the 1870s.
Jeez.
If you brought say coal or bagged seed in to ship, they'd weigh them up to be able to tell you how much you had to pay for the shipment.
Not just for baggage, huh?
No. Now down from us here, beyond this car, you've got a Milwaukee Road steam engine tender that was converted to a flanger. Like I said, the railroad was great reusers.
Mm-hmm.
When they started scrapping steam engines, there was a glut of steel on the used steel market, so they try to find ways to extend the usage for that equipment. Excuse me. They took the couple of tenders, they cut the coal bunker off, put a primitive cab there, and in the water area, they put hydraulics to raise and lower a plow underneath. So you could plow snow from between the rails and such.
I wondered what that car was. I've never seen anything like that.
They would
before.
do that in conjunction with a Jordan spreader. The Jordan would be a wing plow that would push the snow away from the tracks, and then that would clear the snow from between the rails.
Okay.
But they had to station somebody there because if they didn't, it also cleared the roadway when you hit the roads crossings. Beyond that, the diesel is a 1963 Soo Line GP30 diesel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bastard engine. EMD was trying to wean Soo Line away from Alco Company products, so they said, okay, trade your Alco engines in, let us reuse the trucks, and we'll get you a whole new power system and body for the locomotive. So they did. One of the first instances of one company reutilizing another company's products for a locomotive.
Yeah. Huh.
Now this car is a 1911 Soo Line first class coach.
Yeah,
Built by Barney
this
Smith.
thing is a lot larger than I thought it was going to be when I stepped into it. Oh yeah, this is really nice.
This is the type of seat that would have been in the car originally. This was a generation earlier. This seat just flips back and forth. This one actually rotates over so you can change directions of how you're seated.
Oh yeah, okay.
This is a modern seat. This one spins on its pedestal.
Oh,
This was a seat that would be on the end platform on the observation car at the end of the train, so you could watch the scenery go by. And it didn't have much upholstery, so if it got wet, it would dry out quickly. A seat from a Great Northern Empire Builder parlor car, a seat from Wisconsin Central business car, and a Soo Line dining car seat.
nice.
When we got this car, it had been in work train usage. They had a big cast iron stove here for feeding the workers, and then after the first 2 sections, every other section on this side was a 6-foot by 6-foot Luan paneled bedroom
Wow.
for the
Okay.
track crews to sleep in. They had whacked and hacked the trim work here, painted it over. All the windows were painted over. We have gone back and restored the car.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, stained glass and all that.
We're still trying to find copies of the light fixtures that worked in the car, though.
Mm-hmm.
We've now found the glass shades for the car. We're getting those put on, but we still have a couple of fixtures we're looking for. They're very hard to find.
Yeah, I bet.
But what you see here is, on this side, these are plates that the railroads would give out to their employees. Annual Christmas presents or safety awards, plates that commemorated programs or new facilities, new operations. Over here, this is crystal or glassware from the parlor cars and bar cars. The uniforms are dining car waiters. We even have the uniform for the last head chef for the Chicago Northwestern. He got the little aiguillettes here with the cloth ones instead of the middle
Wow. Okay.
buttons like the
Yeah.
workers would have. But you know, you'd have the parlor cars where you go down, raise a few rounds, or smoking was a big thing on the railroads.
Yeah.
You had the cards. You have a lot of safety awards that they come out with. And then you have the uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Including one of the early Amtrak female conductors' uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
When they started hiring gals, they forgot to design a hat for them. So they just told them, go out in the economy and get a blue hat that looks good. And there she is working with her uniform. We also have a Burlington Route band uniform. Mike Wolfe shot one part of the episode here for the American Pickers show.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I got to sell him a uniform that we had from the Union Pacific. And after I got back from my trip, went up to our storage area and got the exact same uniform. So we tried to basically get rid of the duplicates.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's good that you can do that.
This is another thing we're kind of proud of. It's a tabard for a Union official. It dates back to the 1890s. Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers. It would have been used for, say, annual elections, or if there was a death in the branch, they would wear those at the funeral.
Okay.
And when the kids are here, they can try on the hats and such. Kind of a dress up. We even have a British Railway Police Bobby's hat.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I didn't see that. Very nice.
The pieces on the table here, this came out of a private car, tea and coffee server.
Wow. All right. Great.
Now, this car
This
is
is
the successor to the old pump cars that you'd see.
yeah.
They call a speeder or a putt-putt car. And they've been replaced now by the high rail trucks, where you have a standard pickup truck that has hydraulic lifts for the wheels.
Sure.
Ride away from the road.
Yeah.
Railroad.
Yeah, they actually drive from the road, climb on the track, lower the wheels, and go.
Yep. Now, number 5 here was built in 1911. It was used at Cornet Phosphate down in Florida. And just about every engine that plant had is still in existence.
Okay.
I even had a chance when I was in high school to climb around on one of those down in Monee, Illinois. Now that engine's at the Illinois Railway Museum. This was over in Annandale, Minnesota.
Annandale, that sounds
Gentlemen,
familiar.
West of the Twin Cities. The gentleman bought it off of an ad in Model Railroad magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Fully operational steam engine. He got it up here. It was missing the main rods. It was missing the eccentric gear.
Oh.
They did find the rods eventually, but they still couldn't find the brasses that went with it, so it sat. He passed away a few years ago. We were contacted by the family to try to take care of the estate for them. We bought this engine and the refrigerator car,
Oh.
and helped find homes for a number of other pieces of equipment. The refrigerator cars were the last ice bunkered refrigerator cars built in the country. Built for Milwaukee Railroad in the 1940s.
That's this one here?
Right, yeah, on the right.
Okay.
The caboose here is a Milwaukee bay window caboose.
Yeah, let me grab a shot around here.
And that was, Milwaukee was bought out by the Soo Line,
Yes.
and then the Soo Line sold out what they call their Lake States division to Wisconsin Central Limited.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Wisconsin Southern.
Wisconsin
No.
Central Limited.
Okay.
Mr. Burkhart was that. Then that was bought by Canadian National. Now, the caboose beyond that is a Duluth South Shore and Atlantic wooden caboose built by Soo Line for their subsidiary.
And that one's got the cupola on top. And that's,
It's
a wooden one.
Yeah, it was built using the one we were in, but the seating is all
Okay.
Where you had cafe style seating there, they've got the seats along the walls there. Where you had seats along the walls, they have cafe style seating. So it's like going back to grandma's house 40 years after she's died and they've remodeled. You know it looks familiar, but something's different.
Yeah.
Now over here, the tank here is the fuel tank for the steam engine here. And the hole in the middle lines up with the firebox. So this is an oil fire engine. They had to brush out the flues.
Uh-huh.
So you'd have like a 30-foot long, basically a bottle brush.
Yeah.
So you had to be able to get that back and forth there. So that's why you had the hole in the middle of the tank.
Okay.
And the other tank was the water for the engine.
Sure.
Now the big piece sitting on the ground here was a coal chute for Duluth, Mesabi, and Northern. They would have a track that came up to bunkers. They would drop coal from the hopper cars into the bunker, and then the trains could come down below that bunker. They would pull the chute down to the tender, and they could have the coal just gravity feed into the tender. They didn't have to use any mechanical equipment.
Nice, yeah.
They let gravity do
shovels.
the work for them. Now this car is a 1902 Pullman for the Northern Pacific. It was taken out of service in the early 1930s and turned into, at first, a restaurant in New Richmond, and then taken over to Hammond, Wisconsin, and used as a house for about 60 years.
Oh, wow.
We've gone back, and they had put modern windows in. We've rebuilt those, put
the original
proper style
yeah.
in. There's 63 stained glass windows up in the clerestory here.
Oh.
They covered
got it
those-
covered.
they covered
That's
those.
good. Yeah.
But we're in the process of getting it back.
Yeah.
As a
Looks
railroad
like
car.
recently you've been working on it, huh?
No, this one's been sitting for a little bit.
Okay.
We had when we got the other depot after the tornado, that ate up our time for about 6 years.
Okay.
The yellow car here is the one with it has ties with only the postal dog. 1884 mail car, built in the Hudson shops, the Omaha route. Again, this was a house for about 70 years. You can see the rails in the end here where they reinforced it for the safety back in the 20s to try to cut down on the potential for telescoping between cars in an accident. But that one was built here on this site. Was completed in the
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
in the fall of 1898, 1898. But it ended where that small chimney is on this end.
Uh-huh.
At some point, they added on to the building, and we're not sure whether it's because of all the freight that they had coming through, because they were getting about 700 freight cars through every 6 months here, Colfax, or because the station master had more kids, because the station master lived upstairs with his family.
Yeah.
But it was added on, and then, like I said, 1912, Teddy Roosevelt stopped here, and a year later, they jacked that building up, set it here, and then took it across the tracks to use as a track crew.
Yeah, the Baraboo station has offices upstairs.
Yep.
But, yeah, so that was originally here.
Now, the stairway on the outside here, they had one when it was a track crew rooming house, but that is a more recent addition there. It's a lot safer and better handicap accessibility. The garage was paired as part of the house when it was.
Yeah, so somebody lives there now.
Yeah. Lived there then.
Lived there. Okay.
The museum now owns the building.
Oh, okay.
And downstairs we have our library, archives, and event center. The library is on this end, the event center is on the west side, and then upstairs we have the Model Railroad Club and our video storage.
Then I'll have to come back and grab that at some point when I'm up around here.
Yeah.
And everybody should come out here and see this. This is, I didn't know what to expect. It is a small museum, and there is so much stuff here to see. It's really incredible. So.
And we're hoping that the state comes through with their budget this year
Yeah.
to get the roof over all the rolling stock, because winters are not kind to the old equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. You got this one here with the already covered, but Yeah, so come on out, check this out. This is great.
We're open from the 1st of May to end of October right now. We're hoping to extend the hours once we get the snow plow and get the building up. And we're open Wednesdays through Sundays, 11 to 4.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.